Today's video, I think I'm going to put the rest of the suspension together. And I may even pull the front fenders. I want to start getting, get everything prepped up here, ready to spray. I'm going to try and spray it and maybe Sunday or Monday. It's supposed to be really warm, like 50 degrees, so I can open up the doors and let the air blow through when I'm spraying, kind of ventilate the garage. Because obviously I can't take the car out to the spray booth. So it's going to have to be sprayed right here, so I have to cover everything up in here. I put a box fan in that window blowing out, and then I'll turn the heat up to like 75, 80 degrees, get it nice and warm in here. And then when it's ready to spray, I'll turn the heat off, and then I'll cover the furnace so it doesn't get overspray, and then I'll spray it with the doors open to keep the fumes out, and I'll use my HVLP gun. And then when I'm done, spraying it, I'll close the garage back up and crank the heat back up. So it's hopefully going to be black by early next week, and then I'll get the steering gear painted and back on, the booster, get the rest together so I can put the engine in. And it's also been like Christmas around here. It's like Santa came. I'll show you what I got. So I got these now. One of my viewers who requested to remain anonymous sent me this stuff he'd bought for his 66 Galaxie, and then when it was sitting out in his driveway, I guess it was stolen, and then he bought another one, and it didn't need any of this. So he sent it to me, and he just said he wanted to remain anonymous, which is fine. I get it. So anyway, we got new 352 emblems. The original emblems weren't too bad. I could have reused them, but God, look at how much nicer that new emblem is compared to the old one. I don't know if the video shows it, but the old ones weren't bad. They'd probably clean up, but with new ones, yeah, we'll put them on. And then another thing that he sent me was, I think these are reproduction door handles, but they are really nice. It comes with the buttons, the gaskets, both right and left. And this will sure beat that hideous looking door handle. Go from that to that with new paint on that door. It's going to look amazing. And I have a mirror to replace this pitted. I think all the pitting on the bright metal work is from the salt air in Florida. This is a Florida car, but that's going to look super nice. And he also sent me a day-night mirror. My dad's country sedan, 66 country sedan, I remember had one of these. I remember it said day on one side, night dark, like that. Vividly remember it. Can you see the mirror through the windshield? Yeah, it's kind of, it would clean up. I could probably get in, take it down, hit it with some chrome polish, but we'll put a new one in, and we'll put the day-night one in. That'll be a nice feature. The Bel Air has a tinted mirror. I wish it had a day-night, but it has a tinted rearview mirror, so that kind of helps. And seeing I'm putting the suspension together, I was chasing down some parts, so I went and picked up one kit for the sway control. They only had one in stock at the auto parts, and they ordered the other one. That's the original ones. They're not too bad, but they're getting replaced. And I also ordered these rubber grommets that are on the sway bar, because I'm going to take them off to paint the bar. And I thought, well, might as well put new ones on it, right? And I'm going to clean up the strut bars and paint them today so I can put them on when the paint's dry. And if I have time today, I'll pull the fenders. If I don't, I'll pull them tomorrow. And then I'll get these masked off, finish prepping them and mask them off, and get everything ready to spray. Another item too, I was going to try and put 67 disc brakes on the Galaxie. In 66, disc brakes were an option, and it was system by Kelsey Hayes, and it was a 4-piston caliper, I believe, 2 on each side. The caliper was not floating. And we've had cars in the past, my family, with Kelsey Hayes, and they just tend to squeal a lot. And 66 and 67 use Kelsey Hayes disc, and like I say, 66 it was an option. And I thought if I could get the Kelsey Hayes original setup, I'd put disc brakes on the car. But this 67, my dad says, really sunk down in the dirt. It's just really in a cruddy area, and I doubt the wheels are any good. I need all 5 of the wheels. The wheels are different if you have disc brakes and if you have drum brakes from in that era. And I just am not prepared to try and hunt up all the wheels and everything needed to convert to the Kelsey Hayes disc brakes. And if it's not OEM type stuff, I'm just not interested in putting it on. I don't like this, aftermarket, the look of the aftermarket stuff. It looks too aftermarket to me. I don't like the looks of that. It's like putting chrome AutoZone valve covers on the engine. It's just detracts from the look of the car. I'd rather have the original drum brakes than aftermarket disc. And so that's I'm just going to put drums back on the car. I'm going to put a dual reservoir master cylinder on it, and I am going to put the 67 dual master cylinder and proportioning valve on it, and then run, so we'll have the separate hydraulic system, so if one side fails you still have brakes. Generally when I do these cars with the single reservoir, I replace all the hydraulic lines, hoses, new wheel cylinders, master, the systems, and then you don't drive them a lot, and you don't drive them in crummy weather. So usually they're pretty good, and I always make sure the parking brake works. Back then they called it an emergency brake, so when you had hydraulic failure, you could use it to stop the car with the rear brakes. The brake cables on this car are actually free. They're not seized up, the parking brake cables. I was going to order new ones, and I thought, well, before I do, I'm going to make sure they're good. And I can take my hand and move them, in and out of the housing. They definitely are free, and the cable from the pedal down is free too. So I don't need to replace any of the parking brake cables, but I think early next week I'm going to order all the parts for the brakes so I can start running the hydraulic lines and stuff. I want to try and have the engine in the next couple, 2-3 weeks. By Christmas, hopefully have the engine back in, I'm hoping. And it's moving along pretty good. I get those inner fenders painted, it's going to look nice. So I'm going to get to work on putting the springs and stuff in now, and I'll do a little video as I go on that. And sorry if I bored you with with my yapping here. While I was out, I also picked up some seam sealer for that seam on the cowl. This seam right here. I'm going to re-caulk it. So yeah, got that, and we'll get that done before I paint the body, because I want to paint this body color. And before I put the engine in, I think I'll get the paint mix. So while these are off, I'll strip them and paint them. But I think I'll paint this part because I can stand in here and paint it real nicely with the engine out. I could use my little door jam gun or my HEB-LP door jam gun, seeing I can't take the car outside. And that way this is painted when the engine's in. I don't have to worry about any overspray getting on the motor. And I can get a little nicer paint job in there, and I'll sand that out obviously before I spray it. I can't see what I'm videoing up there, but I'm going to strip this and paint that at the same time I do the fenders. And I have that color silver in my paint, with my paint stuff. It's basically the same color as the crankcase on the motorcycle engine. That's the paint I'm going to use. And I might even strip the hood and paint it too. I'm going to paint the underside. The underside is green, so I'm going to paint the underside too. So it's all fresh. I'll just paint the underside first, and then I'll paint this side. I'll strip this, paint this, and then paint this after this is dried. So basically when I'm done, when I go to put the engine in, I'll be able to put the front end together, and the front end will be done. I'll just have to do from here back. So yeah, it's gonna move along okay. So I might not have the engine running by Christmas because of the body work I'm going to be doing, but you know, I'll have a big portion of the car done. You know, I mean, really, I'll have most of the undercarriage. The undercarriage is painted back to here, and so I'll take the gas tank out and take the rear brakes off, and I'll clean and paint the rest of the undercarriage before I paint the body, so I don't get overspray on the body from the underneath. And I'll take the doors off, you know, and then I can spray all in here. And I can spray some of this while the fenders are off. When I'm painting the fenders, I'll paint what I can't get when the fenders are on, because I might put the fenders back on, get them lined up before I take the doors off. So when I put the doors back on, it's easier to line them up. And, you know, and at that, I'll paint this when I paint this. And I'll paint this when I paint the door jambs, but from here forward I may paint while the fenders are off the car. We'll just kind of see how it goes with that. And I got to fix this rust. I got to get the convertible top off to fix that. That's why I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and strip these and get them painted. And then I can get everything off the roof of the car and back on the front. Less crap laying around. I won't have a table anymore. I won't have anything to set parts on anymore. I mean, you know, I don't set anything on here that's going to dent the fender, but I really don't care if it gets scratched. A friend was just over earlier and asked if he could key the car. I says, go ahead. I says, write your name in it if you want. But yeah, once it's painted, nothing's going to be setting on there anymore. Well, I'm getting ready to put the spring in. This is the top of the spring. This is the bottom of the spring. So I want my compressor in this way so I can get my socket on there. After the spring's in the car, I gotta be able to take the compressor out. And I oiled the compressor really good. I should go put some gloves on. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Okay, let's get back to putting this compressor in here. I don't want to get it too far up in the spring to where I can't thread it out. But you can kind of see how it hooks. That's why one hook is longer than the other, because, you know, that's obvious. I think I'm going to run this one up one coil here. And this has to go this way around. Alright, and then I'll just compress that a little bit. I don't know, maybe I'll turn it, because I don't want this to get caught up in the spring pocket, so I'm going to put that one there and maybe this one down just a smidge. There we go. This sits in the control. I'll show you where it sits in the control arm here in a minute. Whoops. I gotta turn this a little. I got that. This end's the wrong way around. Well, the other end just fell out. Let me get this thing in, and then, because the camera's, I'm about to knock it over. So let me get this together, and then I'll turn it back on. Alright, so I just kind of got the compressor. It was easier to get the compressor in like this. So the spring compressor's in. Whoops. Yeah, then I had the impact going the wrong way. So let me get it back together. Don't you love it when you do things like that? You get it all nicely together and you turn the thing the wrong way and it all comes apart. I oil the compressor because, you know, this is a lot I'm really running this with the impact, and that screw is going to have a lot of torque on it. There's a little bearing in between a couple washers there. And I just don't want anything to get ruined, so that's why I oil it every time I use it. Now it's going the right way. All right, before I reef that up, I'll show you what I'm talking about on the spring pocket. See that? I don't know if that shows up or not. That's where this part of the spring sits. This part sits up in a, I don't know, if it's all too dark up in there, but that sits up in a rubber, it's a rubber piece that pushes up into on the body. So let me compress that thing up. Well, I hope not to send the camera flying or spring, but wanted to kind of see if I can get this to where I can video it. So I just snugged up. That's not tight, the nut on the upper spindle here. This is just finger tight. And I took the nut off the lower control arm and made sure that that was going to go into the spindle okay, that this is positioned. So now I'm going to compress the spring, set it up in there, put that up, get the little thing here, that lined up with that. If you don't line that up properly, when you stop and start, you'll hear a snapping noise. That's from the spring popping around in there. So you got to make sure you get the end of the coil right here. If it goes up into here, you'll get the snapping sound when you stop and start. So let me compress the spring. Let me see if I can video it. Hopefully I'm not blocking with my fat head too much. And then I'm going to jack it up a little bit. Make sure the spring's in the, oh God, I guess I'm not even videoing, sorry. Might come off the jack stand here when I'm doing this, but that's just the way it goes. I need to move that spring just a little. Probably should just compress it a little bit more, but I think that's enough. Once it starts in the spindle, I can, I'm going to tie the other control arm up so if something comes down it doesn't bend it. I just started the other one in the spindle so it wouldn't get damaged. Yeah, I don't think I have enough weight in the engine compartment to collapse that, so I'm going to have to compress it some more with the spring compressor. Yeah, maybe I need the engine in the car. It's just lifting the whole car right up. Might have to move my compressor down further. I can move it one more leaf down. Let me get a light and see what I can do going around. Yeah, I can get the spring compressor up another coil too, and I can bring this down another coil, and then I can press it more. Then I won't have to jack the car up. It's lifting it right off the jack stand, so I'm going to back it off a little here. All right, let me just get this repositioned on the... I just realized I pushed the wrong button. So anyway, it's recording now. Need to move the spring this way. I might have just let it down a fuzz to do that. There we go. Okay, now we're through to where I can get the nut on. See how it's not where it belongs? So we're going to compress that down a little bit more and move it. All right, with a little horsing around, it's right up where it's supposed to be. So now I'm going to loosen up the spring compressor, and it should be installed. I got to make sure it seats there properly as I release it. Yeah, the light's pouring here, but oh well. The jack, I'm going to let it down, get it out of my way. And the spring is pretty good right there, so I'm going to just slowly open it up. When that spring, I don't want it, let me get my light again. I don't want it, you can see where the old spring used to come to a stop in there, and that's right where I want this spring to come to a stop. So I'm going to lower it and hold it, try and keep it right in that spot. Whoops, my nut came off for my socket. Sorry, the air compressor just kicked on. See how that is? That's going to snap, so I got to tighten it up and just turn it a little bit this way. compressor came unscrewed. I'll have to just fish the pieces out. So there we go, an installed spring. I can't get my tripod down long enough, but basically just take your finger and turn that thing around on the coils to where you can, so I just kind of turn it down. And when you get to a certain point, you can flip the little lures in. It comes right out where the shock absorber holes are. So I'll put this piece back on and we'll do the other one. See how that's not in the round part of the stamping of the control arm? It's right butted up to the end of the where it's flat. If it was up into that rounded part, as you stop and start, the control arm moves fore and aft just ever so slightly. When you apply the brakes, you know, it might do this to the control arm. I mean, it's probably fractional when it moves, but it's enough to make a popping sound right there. You can hear it in the car, it'll be audible. It's, you know, it's a pretty good snap. So you definitely want to make sure that these are, otherwise you're taking your shock out and reseating the spring in the future if it does that. So there we go. That's one spring in, 3 to go. I'm going to do the back ones too, but I'll wait until I get to the rear of the car to do them. It's going to have all 4 new springs and shocks in it. And the spring compressor, like I say, I oil these threads, oil in between those bearings there. I oil here, I oil here. This spring, I've done a lot of, probably 80% of the cars I've worked on or restored, I've had to put new coils in them, and this thing's done them all. And I guess I put that on backwards, no big deal. I can take it off and flip it around. But it's been a good compressor, and I use it on my impact gun all the time, and that'll get pretty warm, you know, running up and down. You can feel some warmth in that when you're done. So oil is a must if you want your tools to last like this. That is how the spring compressor goes together, you know, as it hooks into the coils like that. This side's going together way easier, so you can see the spring there. And it's all, I don't know what the camera's videoing, but it's all seated up in there. So I'm going to pull a jack out and remove the spring compressor. There we go, the left spring's in now too, so I'm going to, the noise you hear is the exhaust fan running. It's not the furnace, but I'm going to touch the furnace just now kicked on though, but I'm going to touch up some of the paint in here, tighten up these nuts first, put the cotter pins in, touch up some paint. I'm going to pull this molding off so the fenders can come off, and might clean up the strut rods that go between here and up there so I can paint them, get the paint drying. And the sway control will go on the end of next week. The auto parts had to order the rubber grommets that go here, and the bushings that, you know, one of them that goes here. I showed you the one. I got all the suspension together, torqued down, tightened the tie rod ends, put the cotter pins in. Same with the ball joints. These are 60 to 90 pounds plus enough to get the cotter pin through. And got them all tightened up. Looks good. Springs in. I'm gonna bead blast the strut bars, the stabilizer bar. I'm gonna clean up so we can get that in. I got the fender all loose. It's not unbolted, but it is all loose. I took the little pieces of trim off, got the rubber bumpers off, the little grommet thing there. Same there, trim piece off here. All suspension on this side. Pretty much all assembled other than, like I say, the strut and stabilizer bar and the shocks. And I took the rocker panel molding off. And the rocker panel on this side of the car is good all the way to the back. There's the hole in the door. There's going to be a hole here, I have a feeling, too, by the time I beat it with the hammer. And there's a hole here. So we got a little bit of rust to repair, but nothing major. It's all minor. You know, that's an easy repair. And you know, and I don't know if I showed in past videos or not, but when I take the gas tank out, the drain for that was plugged up and there's a little bit of rust down in here. And when all that up there is like brand new. Just down here where the water sat from that drain being plugged. So weld new panels in once I get the tank out. The rest of the car, you know, all this from the inside of the car, this is all solid when you look in the trunk. So I think the only rust is over there. I think there's going to be a hole here because that's, see how it's cracked, bubbled? I think that's going to be a hole. Same on, there is a hole on that side, same spot as here. So I think this is where the joint for the body, you can see where they factory leaded. See how the gap is a little different there? That's because when they leaded it, they just were not as careful as they could be. So I'll knock, you know, when I get the top off, I'll clean all that out and we'll get that welded up too. But the only real serious rust on the car is right there. That's the worst rust on the whole car, and that's really nothing. So, you know, and this will clean up fairly easy. The inside's fairly good. A lot of surface rust on the bottom of the door, but it's not rusted out. I can totally just, you know, clean this, knock all the rust out, beat it out with my body hammer, grind it out, weld in new metal. I'll oil the inside of the door when I'm all done with it painted and everything so that it doesn't rust anymore. And like I say, the fenders are ready to pop off. I broke one bolt right here, and it's just one of those sheet metal, stamped sheet metal nuts that it doesn't really show it, but it's one of those stamped out of sheet metal nuts. So that's absolutely no big deal at all. And I think while the fenders are off and I paint these up, I think I might clean that up and do something with that too so it looks a little nicer. I don't really want to clear it because that's just gonna, any imperfections, it's just gonna make it look worse because it'll make it shinier. So I might look at some trim paint or something that'll kind of pretty it up, that'll give it a little contrast from the firewall and the rest of the engine compartment. I gotta fix this down here. I have the piece that was in there that's missing. I'm gonna get some fiberglass cloth and resin and fix that, and before the heater core goes back in. So now I'm just gonna blast these and get these painted, maybe tonight or tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll pull the fenders, I think prep the inner fenders and get it ready to shoot Monday or maybe Sunday or Monday. I think Monday's supposed to be pretty warm, so I can open up the garage a little bit for ventilation. So that's going to be it. I'm going to call it a day, and if you like my video, hit the like button. If you want to see this awesome Galaxie all restored and like new, probably better than new, subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching.